welcome to yet another review of a Caledonia Works product in Train Simulator Classic. This time, we're looking at what is currently the newest add-on in their arsenal, namely the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway G-Class Steam Locomotive, a very old design from the mid-1870s. Ed was most offended over 330 Newhaven rejecting his offer to assist her up the climb to Manston 4, but we've got better things to do than listen to a 4F ranting. And now for a brief history on the G-Class, whose design is credited to William Stroudley. 26 of these little 222 tender engines were built at Brighton Works, with the prototype, number 151 Grosvenor, appearing in 1874. Following tests with 151, later renumbered as 326, a second prototype, number 325 Abergavenny, was ordered in late 1876 and built in January 1877. These two were joined by a further 22 classmates, who were built between December 1880 and May 1882. As for what these locomotives were intended for, it was express trains between London and the south coast, and the engines would often run to places such as Brighton, Eastbourne and Portsmouth. In the second half of the 19th century, steam locomotives with only one driving axle were still relatively common in the UK. See the Great Eastern Railway P43 class for another example. Following the introduction of the B2 class 440s in 1895, the Gs were relegated to less important duties. The first of these engines to be withdrawn were 326 Grosvenor, 325 Conneau, and 336 Edinburgh, who all went out in May 1907. The final survivor was number 329 Stevenson, but she wasn't withdrawn until May 1914. Sadly, none of these, dare I say, charming locomotives have survived into preservation, but I was surprised to see that there are more photographs of the real things out there than what I was expecting. The G-Class was released for TS on the 13th of December 2024. It's available on CW's website for a lower than expected price of £10, or $23.11 NZD, while Mr. Wilson's add-ons normally cost between £13 and £25. So here you have a full locomotive pack that only costs a tenner, and with that fact in mind, one wonders why Armstrong Powerhouse often charges well over a tenner for packs that merely enhance existing models. Quite frankly, I think most of AP's enhancement packs are overpriced to the point of farce, especially the Class 158, Class 375/377 and Hitachi IET packs. But to avoid getting sidetracked any further, I'll return to discussing the G-Class. This was a curious choice of engine to bring to TS, if you ask me. Years ago, someone made a freeware model of the G-Class, and I actually featured it in a video back in June 2021. The model was alright for its time, but it hasn't aged well at all. For one thing, the sounds on that original model were lifted from the old Kuju era 7F, something that CW certainly did not do for their version. Besides the G-Class, other steam locomotives from the LBSCR are also available for TS, including the famous E2 class 060 and L class 464, but I haven't got either of those engines yet. Instead, the other ones I've got in my collection are the E4 class 062 tank and A1/A1X Terrier 060 tanks, brought to the game by Caledonia Works and Victory Works respectively. The Terriers come with Stroudley four-wheel coaches, which are suitable for the G-Class as well. Normally, I would list off the liveries that come with the pack, but in the case of the G-Class, you only get one livery. But it's actually realistic this time, and not because of CW pulling a dovetail. For context, DTG would often only bother including one livery with the locomotives or multiple units they brought to TS, even when the real things actually carried multiple liveries throughout their lives. In the case of the G-Class, these engines only ever ran in one livery, namely Stroudley's Improved Engine Green. As for features, there's a decent amount of them on this locomotive. She's built on SimNation's Locomotion 2.0 scripting, and the features include, but are certainly not limited to, numerous cab camera views, authentic LBSCR headlamps, fluctuating water level depending on the gradient, realistic performance physics, lump firing simulation, advanced safety valve, chimney and cylinder scripting, custom auto fireman, fire intensity synchronized with the exhaust beat, and, as always, Performance Mode Pro. As I should have expected from a locomotive design this old, the boiler backhead on the G-Class is not as cluttered as more recent engines, but it's not as Spartan as it is on the Northeastern Railway long boiler 060. In any case, I reckon Mr. Wilson has done just as good a job modelling the G-Class footplate as he always does with his engines. On the driver's side, we can see that this locomotive has a screw reverser, but unlike other engines in CW's range, this one doesn't have a reverser lock. I had to look in the manual to get an idea of what lump firing simulation means, since I hadn't heard of it before. The manual says that you can shovel individual lumps of coal on the fire by quickly pressing the R key, or you can hold down R for continuous shoveling. The auto fireman is toggled on or off by pressing Ctrl R, and details on how it works can be found in the manual. If you get the G-Class for yourself, I strongly advise reading the manual, as it goes into detail on what the various keyboard controls do, and, of course, how to drive the locomotive. I was getting an issue with the firebox door, in the sense that, sometimes, it didn't move smoothly when I pressed the F key. I've had a few instances where I had to hold down the F key to get the door open, and even when it was open, it still juddered about and closed as soon as I depressed the F key. As an alternative to the juddery firebox door, I just clicked the fire symbol on the F4 HUD, and instead of hearing the crazy world of Arthur Brown, I saw the firing work the same way as it normally does on steamers in TS Classic. As for any other downsides to the G-Class, the only ones that come to mind are A. the locomotive being prone to wheel slip, B. the builder's plate only showing the year 1882 across every single member of the class, C. an occasional glitch where the wheels appear to move slower than the locomotive, and D. her very limited potential for use in a realistic setting. As far as I know, there aren't any suitable pre-grouping era routes on which you can run the LBSCR locomotives. Well, not yet anyway. Come to think of it, it would be nice if we could get a pre-grouping version of London to Brighton in TS. For the time being, the little 222 does at least come with quick drive consists, with the requirements for said consists being the Matrix Trains LBSCR Coach Pack 1, available from CW's website, and the Stroudley four-wheelers that come with Victory Works' Terriers, which are available from Steam Sound Supreme. At the end of the day, I think the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway G-Class by Caledonia Works is perfectly fine. What's on offer here is a reasonably priced add-on with good modelling, features and livery application. The locomotive's also reasonably fun to drive, although there is still that issue of limited usefulness, especially if you want to run the engine in a realistic setting. Of course, there's unlimited potential if you want to use the G-Class in fictional settings, but I understand that not everyone wants to do that sort of thing. In any case, I give this little 222 tender engine a 6.7 out of 10.